While all good things must come to an end, that doesn't mean that has to be all sad. Hey everybody, welcome to After Action Report, your recap show for all Schmoedown matches to keep you caught up on all the action. I'm your host Megs here for the Call to Action podcast channel. Sorry guys, it's been about a month since I have seen you all, but there have been some personal things that I've had to take care of, but there was no way that I was not going to do a full recap and giving you the stats and the moments from the final event of the Schmoedown Spectacular 7. Now, the whole event could have come off as sad, but it ended up being a beautiful celebration of all the past 9 seasons of the MTS, with having some people who we hadn't seen for a while come back, seeing a continuation and some payoff of things that we had seen during this past season, and overall just a really cool event to watch. I encourage you to go back and watch the entire thing. It is 7 hours long, so I'm going to do my best here to give you all a quick recap of everything that happened, but it is definitely worth viewing on your own. But without further ado, just as the show did, let's jump right into our first match of the night, a teams match between the return of Who's the Boss against rookie sensations from this year, the ruling class. Coming out of round 1, Who's the Boss is up by 2, 20-18. Riley, Seibold, and Lieberman are just shy of that perfect round with 9 points each, but Bateman does get the perfect round plus the bonus for a total of 11. And this includes a super fun moment on the 10th question. Be sure and check that out if you can. Coming into round 2, Who's the Boss defers to the ruling class, who take horror on their first spin. And they come away with 9 out of 10 points, checking down a multiple choice on one question, but not giving away a steal opportunity. Who's the Boss takes M. Night Shyamalan on their first spin, and they sweep the round for the full 10 points. This gives Who's the Boss the gain of 1 point, and this now puts them up by 3, 30-27. In our final third round, Seibold hits a 2-pointer in comic book movies. Lieberman hits his 3-pointer in Martin Scorsese. That sends it back over to Who's the Boss, where Riley hits a 2-pointer in sports. Again, bouncing back over to the ruling class for their 5-pointer in wrestlers and film, which they hit, forcing it back over to Who's the Boss. Bateman hits his 3-pointer in Happy Madison and Adam Sandler, leaving Who's the Boss with a 5-pointer in Newman and Redford, which they hit, which gives Who's the Boss the win with a final score of 40-37, where Who's the Boss answered 28 of 29 questions for 97% accuracy and scored 95% of 42 available points. The ruling class answered 26 of 28 questions for 93% accuracy and scored 88% of 42 available points. So this was actually my most anticipated match of the entire event from an entertainment standpoint, because you put these 4 personalities on a desk together, the ruling class being charismatic maniacs the entire run of this season. And then you have Who's the Boss, who was an amazing dynamic when they were brought together in 2018 during the Anarchy tournament. And it seems that they picked right back up where they started, and even back to when they were playing back in 2020. Riley giving his signature "I'm sorry" explanation for Bateman's antics was perfect. A wonderful homage to how that dynamic was way back when they were playing together. And again, they picked right back up where they started. And of course, you have Gucci doing his antics, and then you have the introduction of Flaus, who has been a terror in the league all the past couple of years. You put Gucci and Flaus in a room together, there is bound to be some antics done. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later on. But as far as Who's the Boss specifically, they actually looked very similar to how they were back in their very first match of 2020, when they actually set a new high point record for the team's division for that point structure way back then against the Odd Couple. And also looking at the numbers for the ruling class, they actually maintained a very consistent accuracy and potential points earned, being within 1% of their accuracy across all 3 of their matches. So even though they ended up losing this particular match, they performed at a high level all throughout their season. And with this match, Who's the Boss actually has the second highest score for a 3-round match in this season. The highest score was a 41, which was coast-to-coast score against the appointment earlier in this year. And jumping back to the match itself, it was really cool to get to see Janine finally be able to be on the desk. Her banter with Bateman and everybody else across the board was fantastic. She is a well-beloved character in the league, and it was awesome that she was able to have this opportunity to be involved in the spectacular. Even though she wasn't playing, she was able to contribute, and she did a fantastic job on the desk. And speaking of well-beloved characters, let's be real, nobody's really surprised, but there was the big reveal that the Flouse is actually Brett Sheridan. Insert shocked face. Not really. But that was a really nice payoff for something that started way back in SCN days and has been transitioned into the MTS over the past couple of seasons. And to see that that character gets a proper resolution to everything that's happened over the past several years since we had to go digital. So a nice little payoff to that. And the Flouse even came in before digital, but has been very prominent through the digital era. And before we transition into the next match, it was pointed out by Ben Bateman before we started the teams match for the titles that as of this win with Who's the Boss, he actually has the most number of wins of any competitor across all divisions. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit more after this next match about who all had the most wins and kind of where everybody kind of falls in line with the top 5 at least. But that was something that we had in the back of our minds going into this next match, which is for the team's titles. Now, our last team's title match actually saw King Arthur win the titles off of Shazam, so they were the team's champions coming out of the regular season. But unfortunately, Griffin Humes was not able to make it out for Spectacular to film, so King Arthur is going to go under a new moniker because Khan is going to get a new partner, and that partner is revealed to be Paul Oyama. Now, Shazam is actually not a stranger to playing off against a team that has alternate members, because when they played for the titles last season, they played against the odder couple, which was Janine stepping in for Mark and Draco when he stepped away during that season. So at that point, Shazam was playing for the titles against the reigning champions, the odd couple, against the odder couple. But now Shazam is playing to try and reclaim their titles from King Arthur, which is now dubbed under a new name, King Arthur Tokyo Drift, which is a nice nod and wink to the Fast and Furious franchise, which is a fan favorite new addition category from this season. So this is the team title match between King Arthur Tokyo Drift and Shazam. Coming out of round 1, King Arthur Tokyo Drift is up by 2, 20-18. Khan, Bibbs, and Meyer all come away with 9 points, but Oyama is able to get that perfect round plus the bonus for 11. In round 2, King Arthur Tokyo Drift defers to Shazam, who spin away from Charlize Theron and end up taking the Wachowskis, and they sweep the round for the full 10 points. King Arthur Tokyo Drift spin away from Stanley Tucci and end up taking Coming of Age on their spin. They also sweep the round for the full 10 points, which means that King Arthur Tokyo Drift is still up by 2, 30-28. In the betting round, King Arthur Tokyo Drift has the wheel and they spin the Wachowskis. Both teams bet 3 points and both teams answer the question correctly. So once again, King Arthur Tokyo Drift are still up by 2, now 33-31. Coming into the speed round, this is where things get interesting. Viviani answers the first question, Khan answers the second question, Meyer answers the third question, Oyama misses question 4, and Meyer ends the round hitting the 5th and final question. Because King Arthur Tokyo Drift overall missed and also hit 1 question, that gives them a net gain of 0 in this round. Shazam hits 3 out of 3 questions to gain a total of 3 points. So with that gain of 3 points, that means that Shazam is actually now up by 1, 34-33. And coming into the championship round, it is a ping pong match throughout the round. Khan hits his 2-pointer in Sly and Arnie. Meyer hits a 2-pointer in Newman and Redford. Oyama hits a 3-pointer in Fantasy Sci-Fi. Bibbs hits a 3-pointer in comedy. Now it's to King Arthur Tokyo Drift for their 5-pointer in Disney, which they hit. And that means Shazam has to answer a 5-pointer in Rodriguez and Tarantino, but they miss it. And that gives King Arthur Tokyo Drift the win and the title with a final score of 43-39. Where King Arthur Tokyo Drift answered 30 of 32 questions for 94% accuracy and scored 86% of 50 available points. Shazam answered 29 of 32 questions for 91% accuracy and scored 78% of 50 available points. So now, since it was a new combination of competitors that won this match, this means that King Arthur Tokyo Drift are our new and final team's champions. So there has been a lot of discussion about what was the greatest team of all time. And even though Shazam has lost their last 2 championship matches, so also did the Patriots at the end of their run. They lost a 5-round championship match and they lost an Iron Man match before they disbanded. So their endings to their career are actually very similar. But let's take a look also at their overall numbers now that we are at the end of Schmoedown's history. For the Patriots, they ended their career 9-2 with 6 total defenses, winning 7 out of 8 5-round championship matches. Now looking at Shazam, they end their career 14-4 with 4 total defenses and winning 7 out of 11 5-round championship matches. Now, just by the straight numbers, it's easy to give it over to the Patriots, but you also have to consider the depth of the team's division now compared to what it was back in those earlier seasons. You can argue either way. Both, however you look at it, both teams were incredibly strong in their respective eras. I give the edge to Shazam on a personal level, but would love to hear your thoughts on if you still consider the Patriots the greatest team or if Shazam has swayed you in recent years. Now, during this match, there wasn't just a title on the line for William Bibbiani. As I alluded to earlier, coming into this event, he and Bateman were tied for the most number of matches won across a career of any competitor. Now, I'm going to give huge props and thanks and collaborative credit to Kelly, a fellow member of Action Army, who I have worked with on a couple other projects throughout my time here. And she and I have been keeping an eye on these numbers all throughout the season because we quickly realized that there were 5 competitors that were going to be vying and jockeying for position in this top 5 for both number of matches won as well as total number of matches played. But by the end of this event, I'm going to spoil a little bit for one competitor, but I think y'all kind of know what happens here. When we get to the end of this event, we see that Ben Bateman has the most number of wins of any competitor across history with a total of 36. Bibbiani just behind him with 35 total wins. Kalinowski and Roca are both tied at 34, and then Merle comes away with a total of 33 wins in his career. Now that's total wins across your career. Let's take a look at the total number of matches played. We have a 3-way tie for first. We have Bateman, Kalinowski, and Roca all tied at 58 total matches. Bibbiani has 54, and Merle has 52 across his entire career. So like I said, it was close all throughout the season because while Roca retired at the end of the season, there was still a lot of question marks between the other 4 competitors who all played during this past season where they were going to end up in the lineup of most number of wins and most number of total matches. This is where we end up with Bateman being the sole possessor of the most number of wins in league history, as well as being tied for the most number of matches played. So now we're going to move on to a very different match with a legacy match between a long-awaited return of an older legend and a newer player that has quickly established herself as a legend in her own right in this league. I'm, of course, talking about Rachel the Crusher Cushing Levine versus Lady Justice Marisol McKee. Before we even start the match, though, we saw a wonderful homage and tribute to all the different ladies that have been part of the league throughout its history, as well as a callback to Clark Wolf's infamous line of "We are the league." Coming out of round 1, Marisol is up by 2, 11-9. In round 2, Marisol spins first, spins away from Middle Earth, and ends up taking Fantasy Sci-Fi. She comes away with 8 out of 10 points, misses one question, but it is not stolen. On Rachel's spin, she spins away from Pixar and ends up taking movie release dates. She comes away with 5 out of 10 points, checks down to multiple choice on 2 questions, misses one of those questions as well as a 2-point question, and the 2-point question is stolen by Marisol. This gives Marisol an overall gain of 5 points to where she is now up by 7, 21-14. In the third round, Rachel hits a 2-pointer in Pitt and Clooney, hits a 3-pointer in Dramas, as well as a 5-pointer in Oscars to send it back over to Marisol, avoiding the TKO, to hit a 2-pointer in Martin Scorsese, as well as a 3-pointer in Newman and Redford. And that does give Marisol the win with a final score of 26-24. Where Rachel Cushing Levine answered 15 of 19 questions for 79% accuracy and scored 73% of 33 available points. Marisol McKee answered 18 of 20 questions for 90% accuracy and scored 90% of 29 available points. So I think, unsurprising to anyone, both of these ladies were classy all throughout the match, even going so far as to wear each other's merchandise t-shirts all throughout the match. So Marisol McKee ends her singles career with 2 total defenses of the title back in 2021, going 7-0 in that season. Now, while Rachel was never able to come away with the singles title during her career, she was a 2-time teams champion with a total of 2 defenses with the Shire Wolves, as well as a 2-time IG champion. During that 2019 season, she and Mike were playing hot potato with that title, as I recall. Those were some really cool and amazing matches to watch. So we are going to get to see Rachel later on because she's going to be calling the next match, which is the IG title 4-way. But I am going to say that it was also great to see that Andrew Guy finally got released from his ban from Spectacular, getting to call the last 2 matches. It was really great to see him to be on the desk for this final event, and that he has been a great addition both on the desk and everything that he did as a Schmoedown competitor. Now, before we move into the next match, we did get to see some cutscenes that weren't able to be released due to Friday Night Titans episodes being left incomplete by the end of this season. Some of them included Rick the Rager Radis, Paige for Betty, and including some bribery money to Brother Lomas and Ben the Boss Bateman getting involved with some money transactions. There was some shifty business going on there. But then we also got to see some payoff to a timeline that was pitched by people in the Action Army way back in the 2017 and 2018 era, when we saw that Jen was going to then become Jessica and was going to turn heel. We saw some scenes that were going to lead up to potentially this big heel wedding. It was going to be this whole dramatic thing. We got to see some interactions between Flaus and Jessica, and everyone trying to figure out what was going on with her, leaving competitors very, very confused. So be sure and check those out. Those were fun little things to just give you a little glimpse of some things that could have been. Next, we move into the IG title match, which is a 4-way match with Robert Parker defending against Chandra Dandapani, Kevin Smets, and Mara Kanapik. Coming out of round 1, Kevin gets a perfect round plus the bonus for 11 points. Robert just missing out by 1 question with 9 total points, and Chandra and Mara coming away with 8 points. In round 2, Kevin spins first, spins away from Hasbro, and ends up taking Batman, where he sweeps the category for the full 10 points. Parker is next to spin, takes Star Trek on his first spin, also sweeps the category for 10 points. Mara defers to have Chandru spin next, who spins away from Middle Earth and ends up taking Mixed Bag. He also sweeps for 10 total points. Mara spins away from movie quotes and ends up taking comic book movies. She comes away with 7 out of 10 points, checks down to multiple choice on 2 questions, misses one of them, and only Kevin is able to come away with a 1-point steal, which means that Kevin maintains the lead, gaining a total of 11 points in the round for 22 total points. Robert ends the round at 19, Chandru 18, and Mara 15. In the betting round, Kevin spins away from mixed bag and ends up taking dystopian future and time travel. All 4 of them bet 3 points, and all of them but Mara answered the question correctly, which means Kevin is still up. He is at 25 points. Robert is at 22, Chandru's at 21, and Mara is at now 12 points. We move into the speed round where Kevin answers the first 2 questions correctly. Chandru misses question 3, but answers question 4 correctly. Robert is able to answer the 5th and final question, which means Kevin gains a total of 2 points in the round to now have 27 points. Robert gains 1 point to have 23. Chandru has a net gain of 0 points to stay at 21. Mara gains no points in this round and is still at 12, which does eliminate her from the match. But moving into the 5th and championship round, Chandru is first to answer, hits a 2-pointer in scores and soundtracks, goes to Robert for a 2-pointer in fantasy sci-fi, back to Chandru for a 3-pointer in Superman. Robert has to answer a 3-pointer in Batman, and this gives him the lead with a total of 28. But we do go back to Chandru for his 5-pointer in Heroes. He misses that question and thus is eliminated from the match. Kevin now has to answer his first question of this round and hits a 2-pointer in DC to regain the lead. Back over to Robert, who has to hit a 5-pointer in Star Wars to then send it back over to Kevin, who hits his 3-pointer in Middle Earth and then also hits his 5-pointer in Marvel for the win and the title, with final scores of Kevin at 37, Robert at 33, Chandru 26, and Mara 12. And for accuracies, Chandru Dandapani answered 17 of 22 questions for 77% accuracy and scored 65% of 40 available points. Kevin Smets answered 23 of 23 questions for 100% accuracy and scored 93% of 40 available points. Robert Parker answered 19 of 21 questions for 91% accuracy and scored 83% of 40 available points. Mara Knopek answered 12 of 16 questions for 75% accuracy and scored 41% of 29 available points. Now, this may be a slight spoiler for the next 2 matches ahead, but Kevin Smets is actually the only competitor during the entire spectacular event to achieve a 100% accuracy match. And overall, this was just a really fun match to watch. It was competitive because it's the IG division, and this is always a tough league to do well in. But it looked like it was just a bunch of friends getting together and playing a game. There was very little kayfabe involved because, as we've seen, a couple of those competitors have been pretty notorious heels throughout their careers, but at the end of the day, they were just a bunch of friends playing a match. Now, we know that there was a little side match going on, which got a lot of fun commentary between Harloff and Sam Levine playing amongst themselves, so be sure to listen for that commentary during the match, as well as during the post-match interviews. And speaking of the ending of this match, Kevin Smets becomes the second competitor to have held the IG belt 3 other times. Kalinowski is the other competitor to have done that. And Mike Kalinowski still holds the record for the most number of defenses in a single reign with 3 total defenses. And honorable mentions here to Chandru, who became the first person since Inman and Navarro to successfully defend the belt before Kalinowski came in and had his 3rd and final reign. And also a shout out to Mara Knopek, who won the title the first time back in 2018 and was able to come back into the game in 2021 and regain the belt for a second time. So overall, a nice closeout to this division. We also have closed out the teams division with 2 incredible matches. And now we're going to move into another hard cutthroat division, which is the Star Wars title match for the Vacated title, which was left by Thomas Harper when he retired earlier in this season. Now, the 2 competitors, Andrew DeMolanta and Nikki DeMolanta, it's the battle of the DeMolanta household. And you can see the #1 contender matches that these competitors played over on the Archives channel now. They were originally just Patreon exclusive, but they've now been released onto the Archives channel. So be sure to check those out. Andrew DiMolanta beat Gold Leader to earn his #1 contender shot, and Nikki faced off against Ace Cabrera for her title shot. So once again, as I said, it's the battle of the DiMolanta household with the hunter Andrew DiMolanta facing off against Nikki Dimmy DiMolanta. Coming out of round 1, they are tied at 8. Now, I do have to interject here because, once again, a slight spoiler for all the matches here, but somehow the writers ended up being able to reference Remember the Titans in every single round 1, including Star Wars. Just the fact that we were talking about Star Wars did not stop the writers from continuing the trend and making it a 6 out of 6 matches had a Remember the Titans reference in round 1. Be sure to check out where that reference is in this round 1. I'm surprised that the writers PLD and PJ made it out of that studio alive. But getting back to the match, in round 2, Andrew defers to Nikki, and she ends up taking Rogue One on her first spin. She comes away with 8 out of 10 points, checks down the multiple choice once, misses that question, but it is not stolen. On Andrew's spin, he takes movie quotes on the first spin. He comes away with 9 out of 10 points, checks down to multiple choice once, but doesn't give away a steal opportunity. This means that Andrew gains 1 point to now be up by 1, 17 to 16. In the betting round, Andrew spins away from Separatist Empire in first order to take planets and locations. Both bet 3 points and both answer the question correctly, which means Andrew is still up by 1, 20 to 19. In the speed round, neither competitor buzz in on question 1. Nikki answers questions 2 and 3. Andrew answers question 4. Nikki misses on question number 5, which means that both Andrew and Nikki come away with 1 point, which means that Andrew is still up by 1, 21 to 20. And just to show how big of a difference this speed round can make in a match, had neither Nikki or Andrew buzzed in on that 5th and final question, Nikki would have been ahead coming into this 5th and final round. So the betting round and the speed round both can cause huge swings inside of these title matches, which always made 5-round matches so much fun to watch. But coming into the championship round, it is a back and forth. Nikki with a 2-pointer in prequel trilogy. Andrew hits a 2-pointer in The Phantom Menace. Nikki, 3-pointer in The Last Jedi. Andrew, 3-pointer in sequel trilogy. Nikki hits a 5-pointer in Weapons and Tech. And Andrew hits his 5-pointer in Solo, which means that Andrew claims the title for the second time with a final score of 31 to 30. With Andrew DiMolanta answering 18 of 21 questions for 86% accuracy and scored 77% of 40 available points. Nikki DiMolanta answered 18 of 22 questions for 82% accuracy and scored 77% of 39 available points. So you could definitely see the competitiveness between both of these competitors, but at the end of the day, they were both just happy for the Star Wars division and the Schmoedown for bringing them closer together as a couple. We saw Nikki come in the 2021 season and just tear through the division to play for the title as Spectacular in this last year, and we saw Andrew DiMolanta finally be able to make it to the Spectacular after his entrance into the league in 2019. Now, as I said, Andrew does claim the title for the second time, making him the only competitor in the Star Wars division to claim the title on 2 separate occasions. And as this is only the second time that Andrew DiMolanta has been able to play in studio, it was really cool to get to see his entrance, which is an homage to the video that he did for his very first studio match way back in 2019. Now on to our main event, which was a rematch from way back in 2017 when we saw that Sam Levine cashed in his free-for-all win from earlier in that season to challenge Dan Merle to a title match after he had just reclaimed his title from Mark Riley and also playing against John Roca in a 3-way title match in that year's Collision event. Now, at the end of that match, Merle was able to get the victory and the successful defense of the singles title. But let's jump into this year's rematch with our current singles champion, the inglorious one, Sam Levine, against Dangerous Dan Merle. Coming out of round 1, Levine is up by 2, 9 to 7, with a beautiful tribute to the great John Schnepp, and a little bit of a cruel callback to the Burbs. In round 2, Levine defers to Merle to spin first. He spins away from monster movies, but ends up landing on monster movies anyway. He comes away with 8 out of 10 points, checking down to multiple choice once, misses that question, but it is not stolen. Levine takes Amblin on his first spin, who comes away with 8 out of 10 points, checks down to multiple choice on 2 questions, but does not give away a steal opportunity. And with that, Levine is still up by 2, 17-15. In the betting round, Levine spins the Cusacks. Levine bets 3 points, Merle bets 2 points, and both answer the question correctly, which means that Levine gains an additional 1 point to now be up by 3, 20-17. And the speed round strikes yet again because Levine answers questions 1 and 2, Merle hits question 3, Levine hits question 4, and Merle misses question 5, which means he has a net gain of 0 during this round, and Levine gains 3 points to now be up by 6, 23-17, where we come into the final championship round. Merle hits a 2-pointer in Tom Hanks, a 3-pointer in Family Films, but misses a 5-pointer in Tarantino and Rodriguez, which gives Levine the win and the defense via TKO with a final score of 23-21, where Sam Levine answered 18 of 20 questions for 90% accuracy and scored 77% of 30 available points. Dan Merle answered 15 of 21 questions for 71% accuracy and scored 58% of 39 available points. So with this win, Sam Levine not only becomes the only singles competitor to successfully defend his title 3 times, he also does all 3 defenses with the decision of the match being either TKO or KO. Now, while you can't deny that Sam Levine has been dominant in this past season, you have to also give respect to Dan Merle, who through his entire career was able to claim the singles title 5 times and played in 18 total 5-round championship matches, winning 12 of those matches. Sam Levine competed in 8 total title matches and came away with 7 wins. Now, Sam Levine does the exact same thing that Dan did to Roca at last Spectacular by giving Dan Merle the singles title because, in his words, it was bigger than one match. And I think that speaks to this entire event. It wasn't as much about the stats or the results, which are all important and fun to look at, but it was about a celebration of everything that this league has been to so many people over its 9-season run. And this does bring us to the end of the event. There was some great interviews and a wonderful tribute to Mark and Christian at the very end, which I think left everybody a little teary-eyed. But as I said, this brings us to the end of the Schmoedown era, and also this is going to be the final episode of After Action Report. There is no future plans right now to do another stats show, but I certainly hope that I'm able to do something in the future. This community has been amazing ever since I came in 2019 and became a part of this community, and being a part of Call to Action and doing stats with them since the beginning of 2020, and 2 amazing seasons of doing this show in particular. I can't end this without showing my love and appreciation for the entire Call to Action crew for, one, welcoming me into this crazy after show community, as well as also being great supporters behind my endeavors to do a stats show. And this was something I never thought I would be doing. So thank you for this amazing opportunity. And also a special shout out to Danny Joy, who was a big inspiration in helping with the idea for this show, as well as Nat Vu, who was a consistent co-host with me in the early days of this show. And I really appreciate all the support from you guys as the community. And I know this community is going to rally behind all the contributors to the MTS, whether it's different competitors or different managers that you know are doing other things outside the Schmoedown, that you guys will continue to support them and all that they're able to do. If you haven't already, make sure that you have hit like on this video. You are subscribed to the channel. C2A is not going anywhere. We're going to continue to be doing content. and leave comments with your thoughts on this episode. The match breakdowns presented here will be posted on Twitter and Facebook. Until we meet again, for the entire Call to Action podcast crew, I'm your host, Megs, and this is After Action Report, signing off for the final time.